going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to part 2 of the $400 Porsche video series. In today's video, we're going to go over what I did to troubleshoot and get this car running for absolutely nothing other than what some people might say is the cost of tools that you own and your time. So ultimately, I got the car running good enough where I drove it over 5 hours to a car show that I go to every year, where I actually ended up selling the car to somebody that I was visiting with when I was down there. They're happy with it so far and they've enjoyed it, as far as I know, since owning it. In the end, the car did run really good. Let's hop right into today's video and I'll show you guys what I did to get this car running for nothing, and maybe it'll help you guys on your 944 or any other car, because a lot of this stuff applies to all sorts of makes and models. So let's hop right into today's video. Alright guys, so it is day 2 of owning the Porsche, and after driving it last night a little bit, I did some research online and I'm hoping there's going to be a fairly easy way to get the gauges working. So if I pop the hood, there's a fuse panel that all the fuses and relays are housed on. So right here is where all the fuses and relays are. The fuse was good. It's a 7.5 amp fuse in position 18. But what powers it is a relay that's known to go bad. So there's a couple of ways I can test this, but what I'm going to do is actually put power to this again, and I'm going to replace the relay with another one. So I'm going to try with maybe a known good one and see if I can get it working. But first, I'm going to vacuum out a lot of this crud from inside of here. Hopefully I'll have somewhere cleaner to work. Alright, so the battery charged all night out of the car. I just got done cleaning the terminals and making myself bleed. I do wonder at times if you can call something truly repaired if you haven't shed your own blood or skin doing it. Probably nothing to do with how it runs, but under here there was an open vacuum line as well. As always, every little bit helps, and it appears like it's just a vacuum canister. It's back here. So I did hook that back up while I was cleaning things out. I noticed that that was all discombobulated. But we're gonna find out if this battery's any good, is basically what I'm doing here. Whether it is or isn't, it's not really any factor. I just figured it had about 4 volts in it when I started monkeying with it. So anything I put in it's going to be better than what it had. Hopefully it'll be able to just start the car and whatever now, and I can monkey with these relays and get the gauges working if I'm lucky. So I'll snug these down real quick and we'll start playing with the gauges. Okay, so here's what I got going on. I got my ground lead going over to the negative terminal on the battery, and this is my fuse for the gauge cluster. It's fuse position 18. It says instruments, and right now with the ignition off, I have no power on either side of the fuse, which you'd expect, and with it on, you should have it on both sides, assuming the fuse is good. Now, power supplied to this is from an ignition fuse in position G2, which is right here. So I'm assuming that this might be dead, and I'm going to test that by switching it with one that I know works, which is this one. That's the fresh air blower, or what would be the blower motor. If the horn works, I could also swap it with what I believe the horn one is, or the sunroof one. Anyways, looks like there's 2 or 3 others I could swap with just to test this out. But for now, I'll go turn the key on, and if I'm lucky, there's going to be no power here. Okay, and what I see is there's no power with the key on. So, what I think I can do, take that little guy, let's put her here. What's this one? This is G13. That is the horn. So let's see if the horn works. No, horn doesn't work either. I don't want to use that one. Let's try. Okay. I felt it click when I put in. I felt it click when I slotted it in there. And I have power now. So in theory, my gauges are going to work. All right, let's see what we got here. Would you look at that? Let's see, tach doesn't work. Appears that we've got oil pressure, we've got voltage, and what I can see is my fuel gauge is working too. So the tachometer is not working, and whether or not that's to be expected, I don't know what to tell you. But at any rate, the gauge cluster should start working, at least some of the gauges. So I'll call this a win for now. All right, so as you will see, still has a rowdy misfire, but I haven't put any time into that yet. The coolant temperature gauge is rising, speedometer works, fuel gauge works, and apparently it wasn't empty. There's about a 3/4 of a fuel tank in there. So hopefully the gas wasn't too old. So far, it's looking like I'm gonna be into this thing for a relay. I'd like to get the tachometer working and see if I can get that actually working, because that's kind of a nice thing to have. But as far as I can tell, everything else on the dash is gonna work. One other big thing in the car besides the misfire is that the heat is just blowing constantly, and it is really hot in here. So that's something that's for sure got to get fixed. If I get lucky, I can source a couple of little clips up here, something to hold these visors up, and it's going to be a decent driving little car. If it drives smooth, it won't be bad. But that's what I got for now. I'm gonna head back to the garage and keep wrenching on it. All right, so I was thinking to myself, it feels like under load, it's starting to misfire is what it feels like, because the idle's okay. So I was like, it's probably an induction or an ignition issue if I had to just guess. And I started pulling on plug wires just to see if they'd come free, and this is what I found. You can get a decent view of what's going on here, but my distributor on the cam gear is not actually mounted to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and screw this hardware in, and I don't believe you time this in any shape or form, but like I said, all I was trying to do was pull off a plug wire, and this thing almost ripped off. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the screw into the bottom where it should be. I'm going to start it, and we'll see if that takes care of it. Good place to start anyways. Alright, so I got that secured. There's actually a hook that you spin and have to land in the exact right spot on the bottom one. So it's actually secure now. I'm going to start it up and see if it revs. Well, I don't quite know how to test the math at this point. Throttle body looks good. There wasn't a mouse nest in there or anything crazy. Plug wire came off nice, and it looks to be okay. There's an insulation around the insulation that appears to be, you know, a little bit aged or whatever, but it doesn't appear to be bad. I'm just gonna take a look at a plug, see what we got. And it doesn't look great, but I've seen worse. Ooh. There's a lot of rust in that hole. I'll have to shop back that out really quick. But the plugs are newer, so I'm not going to think that it's going to need a set of plugs. So my next inclination is to try and run it without certain injectors plugged in to see if I've got a bad injector or something on the fuel side. If that's not it, I'm going to have to figure out how to test the mass airflow sensor. There's a little bit of crud in there from the K&N filter. But this is something I've seen before. It's got like a little, I haven't actually seen one of these, but inside of here there's a little door, and I think how far the door opens is how it meters how much air is going in. It's kind of a neat little setup. You can see the door kinda. Anyways, that little flapper opens and shuts, and how far it opens is, I believe, how much air is flowing through it, or that's how they determine it's a good way to measure it. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and probably put the induction system back together for now. I'll probably try and run it without the mass airflow sensor plugged in. I'll try and run it without different injectors plugged in at different times. I'll see if I've got a dead hole or if I got something else entirely going on, but it seems to break up worse under load. So it's telling me that I may have an ignition issue with whether or not it's ignition advancing or a fuel supply issue or mass airflow issue. It could be any one of the number of things yet, but I've got nothing exactly that I can nail it down to. Not right now anyways. Alright guys, so here's what I've got going on. I found a website to test the mass airflow sensor on, and it's what's called a barn door or a trap door mass airflow sensor, like I said earlier. I've never tested one, but I'm going to show you guys what the testing procedure is on them and how you can see whether or not yours is good or bad. So what you need to do is get your meter out, expose the weather pack connector on the back here. You don't have to unplug it. And right now, I've got the key on and the car in the on position. So right now, I have good supply voltage and a good ground to this. I'm showing right under 5 volts, and being this car is an 86, this is what I should be seeing. The next pin over, I'm showing 0.249 would be millivolts. And what I'm going to do is see if this will sweep up towards that 5 volt range by taking something soft and pushing on that barn door inside here through the filter housing. So it should sweep up towards that. Ground fell out. Alright, try that again. It's 3, 4, now it's going to go right up in there. So I think you guys get the idea here, and I'm testing it should go up smoothly and gradually, which is what I'm seeing. I can just open it all the way. There, 4.46 volts, that's what it maxes out on. So I'm seeing this thing as working, as far as I can tell. I've got good voltage to it, a good ground, and I have a smooth transition from shut to open. And when it's shut, it should be 150 to 250 millivolts. So I don't think this is my problem. So the last thing I'm going to check is the air temperature sensor, and that's between pins 6 and 22. And temperature today, like today, it's like literally 70 degrees out right now, which is right pretty much in the dead center of what you should be testing at. And what I am seeing is that it's a little bit off. So if I'm going to go between pin 22 and 6, that's the far end pin here, and pin 6 is the opposite far end. That is actually ground, and I'm showing 1.09 kilo ohms. So it's actually outside of the spec for the air temperature sensor, and right now it's going to run rich. If it was over 3.3, it would run lean. So I don't know that that's the problem, but I do see that my air temperature sensor is not right as far as I can tell, because like I said, it's around 70, and this is a little ways out as far as I would say. But I'm going to put this back together. I don't think this is my problem. I bet you it will run worse with this disconnected, so I don't think this is it. I'm still leaning towards ignition or fuel at this point. Alright, so I'm going to see what is going on here for spark. This is the next easiest thing, and I've been shocked by one of these things. It's like getting hit by a taser. So you may laugh at me for doing it this way, but joke's on you. I'm going to live through today. Not that cylinder. Not that cylinder. Not that cylinder. Oh, we got a dead hole. Okay, so the rearmost cylinder is bad on this engine. So whatever reason, whether it's a bad injector, wire, something dumb like that, I'm gonna put this down, start monkeying around with it a little bit and see what I can figure out. Behold, this is about as good of a custom job as you're going to get, and I will do this for you. If anybody wants to be like a paying customer or whatever, I can make you a custom plug wire set. You'll see down there, you don't want it to cover the plug like the factory ones. It traps moisture in there and all that, but Anyways, I'm gonna go and get the car started. This is just obviously to test that it's going to run if I go ahead and get a set of plug wires, not rearranging the firing order. I just had one of these laying around. It was a generic set with no ends on them, so hopefully I can start it up and we're gonna have a runner. I gotta tell you, confidence is high right now. Man, it runs about the same. Alright, so the update since messing around with the plugs and wire situation is that I swapped plugs around, nothing changed, so I was starting to think, okay, it's not ignition, because I've got an ignition here, it's sparking all over, and, you know, I don't have fire in the hole. So I didn't know why. All that's left at that point is fuel. So I started looking around online a little bit more, and I found a couple ways you could test injectors. I was testing this one and this one. They both measured 2.7 ohms. I had 14 volts on both of the injector plugs. I had 14 volts on the injector plugs, and I started just knocking on this injector a little bit on my dead hole back here, and it came to life after I plugged it back in. So it seems like it actually took care of the problem, and if I go to unplug this injector now, you can see it die. So my cylinder is working now, just like the rest of them are. That was a big win, and all I needed to do was mess with it just a little bit. So I'm going to take off the battery charger, and we'll go for a little drive and see what it actually runs like. Here's all the power. She's floored. Wow. That's all she had in her too. So the GTA would absolutely stomp this thing, which is funny to think because that car's not even like fast, especially by today's standards. But like I always say, I'm a super big proponent of trying to work smarter, not harder on this type of stuff. A lot of this information is online. I've never worked on a Porsche before, and you know that if you watch the channel, it's been many years since I've even touched one. And all this stuff is translatable. If you're going to do TPS sensor adjustment on a 3rd gen, it's the same way that the trapdoors work on this mass airflow sensor on a Porsche. Or Porsche, sorry, whatever you want to say. But I'm going to go put a couple of miles on this, run through some old gas, and I'm going to go home and pick this up tomorrow with more projects. They even lit cigarettes with this thing, can you believe it? All the fun that used to be had in these cars. I'll be damned, it doesn't. There you have it, guys. She is running sweet. But, like I said, that's all I've got for tonight. I'm going to shut her down, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. Alright guys, so it is day 3 of working on the Porsche, and I was doing some research last night about common issues on these cars, and apparently there's an oil to water cooler on the side of the engine way down here below the manifold. They're known to fail, and what it does is it causes oil and water to mix, or oil and coolant to mix rather. Now I'd already checked the dipstick and everything looks clean on there, but water is thicker than oil, so what it does is it sinks and the oil goes to the top. So the best way to check at first glance is to take a quick peek inside of your coolant reservoir and see if there's any residue of oil in there or on the cap. And I'm not seeing anything. Now, I didn't get any paperwork at all with this car, so I cannot confirm that it's ever been replaced on it. So it is a known failure part on this, just like many other cars have them. It's not something to get super worried about, I guess, but it is something to pay attention to. So, the coolant level is a little bit low, so I can fill it up just a little bit, and I'll probably top that off. Oil level look good on it, but what I'm going to do is go to my local parts store. I'm going to get a little bit of seafoam. I'll put some in the tank, and what I'm going to do is go for a drive on the highway and see what this thing actually runs like, because so far I've only driven it on residential streets and whatnot. I want to make sure it's driving good, and in the next video we're going to go ahead and really clean this thing up and make it look like something. So for now, I'm going to get this thing started. I haven't had a tender on it all night, so I'm going to see how it actually will start under its own power. We'll see if we got a runner. Basically, the giving Porsche giveth. What I found was a loose vacuum line that actually goes right to the throttle body and was disconnected from an elbow under the intake manifold. So what I'm going to do is use that as my siphon, being it's already open and it's a runner without it. I had to get really creative here and start begging and borrowing vacuum lines, but it doesn't seem to mind whether or not I have it hooked up or not. Oh, there we go. Now it works. I'm about to take the car on a great grand adventure. We're gonna go on about a 5-hour drive one way to a car show in southern Minnesota. But the first thing I gotta do is clean it up and get this thing show ready. It's been sitting for quite a while. The last time it was actually cleaned was with a push broom because it was covered in leaves and debris and who knows what else. As far as I can tell, these tires are older, but they are in really good shape, all things considered. I mean, there's a little bit of cracking on them, so fingers crossed it's going to be okay. I'm going to give them a good once over while I'm washing them up and see if anything scary shows itself. But as far as I can tell, this car was last titled and regularly driven in about 2006. So we'll see if it'll make it. Wish me the best of luck. But first things first, let's clean up this old car and see if it looks like something when we're done. Check that thing out. That thing actually cleaned up pretty good, if I'm being honest. These tires can't be as old as they appear to be as far as the tabs are. These had to have been replaced at some point because there's almost no cracking on them anywhere. I mean, there's a little bit here in the sidewall, but I mean, I still think I might be taking a chance a little bit on them, but I've driven on way worse tires. Otherwise, this thing's pretty much good to go. Aside from one little issue that I had from the last video, I mentioned that the heat is constantly on in this thing. The dial over here to adjust the temperature does absolutely nothing. And what I found online is that there's a clip that breaks commonly. They designed it in such a way that in the wintertime, if it fails, it's going to default to heat so you don't die. But if you can look way up in there, see that little white clip there? I can't stick my head in there with you, otherwise I'd show you, but that white clip right here, the armature is missing from it, and what you'll be able to see that's the clip that's broken, and what I'm going to do is actually tie wrap the cable back onto it so I can actually command hot and cold air again. That's going to be the whole idea. So I'll cut back to when I'm done. I will not be able to show you while I'm doing this, but you'll see the result when I'm done. Alright, so I got it all tied up and out of the way. What you're going to see is that armature is now zip tied into place. The lever nearest the orange wire is actually the flapper door that controls heat and cool blending in the car. And what happens is when that little white clip breaks, that arm can't be pushed or pulled anymore, and the flapper door goes to hot. So right now I've got it cold, and turning on the little blower motor, it is air temp, which is good. I should still be able to control heat on this. Using this method, it'll still push and pull. But for now, I'm gonna leave it on cool. Those tie wraps are nice and solid, so I don't think that thing's going anywhere. Worst case scenario, I do have an operational sunroof. It even shuts, check that out. So I should be good to go. I'm gonna load up some tools just in case something develops. The tires are older, but so far so good. All right, so we are rolling in the 944. I just reset my trip down there, so as you can see, it's down to 1 mile. Now, if you're watching this, you may know how to reset it on this, but I had to look up how to reset the trip on this. Unbelievable. Trip button's right there. It looks like a dash vent button. It's identical. But anyways, that's just forward thinking by the good people of Germany. I think we've got about 5 hours to go, something like that. Everything looks pretty good on the car. I gave it a good once over. I had to add a little power steering fluid, but that was about it. So I'll report back if any issues pop up. I did bring a jack and a whole bunch of tools down there just in case something develops. But hopefully it's gonna be okay. So I'll see you guys, hopefully, at our destination. Alright guys, so I just wanted to update you a little bit. We're taking Highway 23, which is kind of a scenic road. Today I think it's gonna be in the upper 80s or right around the 90, 95 region. I don't really know, but it is like standing behind a jet engine in here. Obviously right now I got the windows up because there's a lot of wind noise or whatever, but I gotta tell you guys, if I make it through this, I'm not taking this one on a trip again. At least when it's this hot. It is so hot in here. It's just hard to describe. I'm surprised I'm not like dripping sweat yet. It literally feels like I'm standing behind like a jet engine. So I'm not gonna make this too long. We got a long drive ahead of us. I've got big regrets, but so far the car is running pretty good. So knock on wood, we'll keep going that way. All right guys, so the car made it. Everything went really good at the car show today, and in an interesting turn of events, what I think I found was a buyer for the car down here, which is even better because it's still going to be 100 degrees tomorrow, and that means it's going to be a scorcher for the ride home. And to be honest, the ride down here was comfortable and everything, but at the same time, it was terrible. I mean, to me, if you were the one driving this or whatever, it is worth selling if you can make a pile of money on it right now, which I think I'm going to be able to. But anyways, he's going to come check out the car again one more time here, but I think we got a pretty good number on it. I'm going to make a bunch of money on it, and I think if he goes to resell it, he'll also make some money on it. I still think at what we've agreed upon for a price is maybe in the region of 60%, say, of what I think he could get for it if he actually formally listed it. Clean it up a little bit better, maybe give it an oil change and, you know, very minor service or whatever. But overall, the car is in awesome shape, and it did drive good. It drove all the way down here, and to me, it kind of sells itself. So he's going to come. I don't know that we're going to do any filming or anything, but I just wanted to update you guys that the car drove perfect. It hasn't leaked anything at all. It hasn't started leaking anything. It's kind of a bulletproof cruiser. So maybe if I get real lucky, I'll be able to find another one of these if it goes, and I can keep flipping cars. Do it every once in a while on the channel, but this is an interesting one to flip. So I'll let you guys know what happens after we go for a ride. So the Porsche is gone. I still have the 3rd gen, which needs a rear end. I have the 4th gen, which is running real good, but I do need to put the LS6 stuff on here. And with buying the racetrack and everything, all the free time that I've had is pretty much sucked up. So for now, I'm just enjoying the cars. I am going to work on the white car in the near future and get the rear end put into it so I get this one mobile again. They'll actually convert it to disc brakes, limited slip and whatnot. It's just sitting on the little rack I've got for it right there where it's been sitting, unfortunately. At any rate, I hope you guys liked today's video. It's a really good way you guys can get into buying and selling cars, or flipping them if you will. I do it quite often, and it's a good way to make some money if you know what you're doing. A lot of the times I get lucky, sometimes I don't, but for the most part it does seem to go really good for me. So, hope you guys liked today's video. If you did, I hope I'll see you guys in the next one.